Guys, it's Lost in Plot. We're back with Dexter, New Blood, Episode 10, the finale, Sins of the Father.
Did the finale save the season? Did it save Dexter?
I didn't like this.
You didn't like it. Well, before we get into it, let's talk about the man, the creative driving force behind Dexter, New Blood. Bringing it back was Clyde Phillips, who was a showrunner for the early seasons of Dexter, seasons 1 through 4. He had the idea to come back and do this, to kind of send off the character, and he was the man who wrote the first episode of the season, and he came back to do this, the final episode, which finds Dexter on the run. His secrets have been revealed by Angela. The police are closing in. The relationship with his son is coming to a boil, and the question is, what's going to happen from here?
This was a really strange episode throughout. It feels really strange when you watch it. This is like, imagine you're the painter who created the painting Dogs Playing Poker. A lot of people know this painting.
I know that.
A lot of people like this painting, but, you know, it's got enough of its detractors. Now imagine if the person who painted it had this gathering or did this press conference where he's like, look, and he took his picture and he just tore it up and pounded it and ripped it apart. And he's like, see what I have done to my creation. That's kind of what this episode felt like for me. It was really strange.
Well, it was meant to be, his whole reason for coming back was to do the finale and bring closure to Dexter, because most people didn't like the way season 8 ended with him off in seclusion as a lumberjack. So this season of Dexter, the most watched season in Showtime history. The audience numbers have been off the charts every single week. It is the most watched show that Showtime has ever had. Their number one asset.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Yeah, maybe we didn't think that one through.
Yeah, they didn't think that one through.
We know Clyde Phillips he came back for the sole reason of just wrapping up the character. And, you know, plenty of spoilers here. That's exactly what happened. Dexter dies in the end, killed by Harrison. So that didn't really do it for you, it sounds like.
He doesn't just die at the end. He's kind of unmade. The idea of Dexter is that he is this entity. He is this person who has these demons, which are just inherent to his being. And only through his father does he learn a code that can channel his demons. And as a result, we're supposed to empathize and sympathize with him and even like him. That's the whole premise of the show. You don't make a show about a character that we just hate and loathe. We kind of like him. In this episode, they make him break his code and unmake the essence of Dexter. And they do it kind of willy-nilly, just like, ha! Bam! He just did something you haven't seen him do before, and he did it out of desperation.
Are you talking about the death of the Logan character?
I am, yeah. He breaks his code.
It's not necessarily breaking his code when you consider that the number one rule of the code is don't get caught.
Well, he says that, but most people who watch Dexter would readily identify that his code is that he doesn't kill innocent people. He only goes after bad guys. And here was a guy who couldn't be better, right? He is as good as they come. And Dexter sacrifices him for some strange ploy to escape and go somewhere or do something. It's not really clear what his plan is, and for Dexter,
his plan is to go on the run, to disappear.
Yeah,
with
just
Harrison.
to disappear. But he's such a methodical thinker and planner, and usually 2 steps ahead, that for him to just kind of just out of the blue, without any foreshadowing, say, hey, bring me some water, and now all of a sudden I'm choking you and I've murdered you, and now I'm off and running. To me, it felt like they took Dexter as a character, unmade him in this very hasty fashion, and that set up to the point where you're just like, well, I don't care if they shoot him or not, because I don't recognize him anymore. He doesn't seem like Dexter to me.
Yeah, and I think they did that because they really had to justify the decision that Harrison made to shoot him, that was the only way out, and that Dexter had to be stopped. And Logan is representative of the collateral that Dexter has left in his path. Sergeant Dokes, LaGuerta, these other innocent cops that died because of him, because of what he's been doing, and even Deb. And now you add Logan as just one more to the list, and when that's kind of thrown at him by Harrison at the end, he doesn't really have much of a response except to say, you know, he's right. I did cause all these people's deaths either directly for Logan or through my actions, through what I'm doing. I caused these innocent cops to all die as a result.
Yeah, it's definitely a circumstance where he's taking responsibility for all of his actions, but it couldn't be more one-sided, just a waylay at him at the end. Like, nothing about him, none of his redeeming traits, none of the things that we came to like over these seasons. It's all just
like I said, I think they had to do that because they had to like justify for Harrison that that's your only way out, that this is the way it has to be.
Well, that's why to me it's like Clyde Phillips taking his creation and just unmaking it and destroying it before our eyes. It's
just wrapping
painter,
it up.
It's the painter who rips up dogs playing poker, and you're just at the end of it, you're just like, well, that's strange. He really hates his own painting of dogs playing
I think
poker.
we can still like him while at the same time understanding, the flaws about him and those contradictions. I think that's what kind of makes him a bit of a compelling character. So I wasn't thinking that he just unmade him to just get him out of here and kick him out the door, but I think a lot of people were polarized by this episode, so a lot of them probably are falling on your side. I've seen that reaction online. Not everybody is happy with this. Despite the massive ratings numbers, it's a huge success for Showtime. Now you've got a big old hole on that schedule in terms of your new original content that you're putting out there for Showtime.
People wanted it, probably because the landscape of TV right now and just general entertainment is so shitty that people were desperate for this kind of a show because they remember how good it can potentially be and the way they started it being so good. Well, now you killed it all off, so you can't have another season, so you might as well not dwell on it.
And I was a little bit bugged that Angela was really the one to kind of basically everything was handed to her. It's like, oh yeah, here's everything you need to know about Dexter. All this information just kind of falls into her lap, and she puts the pieces together enough eventually to discover the secret. And that kind of annoyed me a little bit, but then I realized that Angela is kind of really the manifestation of Rita and Deb, basically the women that he's deceived in his life before and had these close relationships, and now through Angela they kind of get their reprisal.
And that's true. So symbolic, maybe she's satisfying, but she's not an interesting character at all.
Agreed. So that's why I did like the closure and everything that they did with this episode. I thought it was excellently written to a quality level that we saw in the first episode that Clyde Phillips wrote, but has been distinctly absent from the rest of the season. Notably so, especially in those last few episodes. So I did enjoy the way that they ended the character and they brought it all together and sent him off, and I agree that that's kind of what had to happen. Mm-hmm. But I understand a lot of people disagree and don't.
Yeah, it just wasn't as smart. There's definitely a more competent hand who's telling this story around, but there's a couple things that I just didn't buy. One, that it's clear to Angela that somebody has burned Dexter's cabin home, that it was an arson, right? And that in the midst of the rubble, she finds the little titanium pin that links him to the murder of the Caldwell boy.
Right.
But there's no way that narrative would ever stick. That, because I found this pin in the ruins of your cabin, which was burned down by another assailant.
Yeah.
I'm going to think that this is going to stick and that I've got you to the point that I'm going to bring you in. Forget it. There's absolutely no chance.
And you've hit a great point, because that does bring my number down too, is because you're asked to really make some leaps here in this episode. One is that Dexter's brought in, he never once considers a lawyer, never once considers the fact that the evidence on him is so thin and scanty for any of these crimes that they're not going to be able to prove it.
Yeah, it's not even close.
They'll drag him through the proceedings and drag him through the mud, and maybe he wanted to avoid all that, but it's... it was very flimsy that they could even tie him back as the Bay Harbor Butcher.
And that hurts it because
down the number.
Dexter, in order to come to the dramatic decision he makes to kill an innocent in order to escape from jail, is motivated by the fact that he thinks that they've kind of got him with such flimsy evidence, and the fact that he doesn't even have a lawyer.
Well, he wants to get out to Harrison. That's who he's worried about.
Yeah, but he wants to just get out of there and get out. And the evidence is so flimsy, he doesn't even ask for a lawyer. He seems like he's 2 steps ahead, and then he's in his cell kind of nonchalant. So it's really didn't set up any type of a justification that he would do this to this guard and then run off in such an ill-conceived plot to just dash into oblivion because he's like, they finally got me. Really? This mastermind? This brilliant guy who had so methodically plotted all of his murders and avoided detection in every way? This is what brings him down?
Yeah.
To me, it was too far of a stretch.
And that was one of the things I hated about this season, is you're right. The initial murder that sets off this whole season, the Matt Caldwell one, was so kind of earned because he hadn't killed anybody for 10 years. Where's your dark passenger? For 10 years, it wasn't a problem. And then suddenly it is. And then suddenly he kills Caldwell, and that has this ripple effect, which I thought was good, until he gets to our favorite, episode 5, that piece of shit, when he goes and he kills the drug dealer and he tries to kill another of the drug dealers on the flimsy reason that, my son did drugs that someone got from you and they were probably poisoned. And that kind of sets off everything and really unravels him. It's kind of like this stupid behavior, like you were saying. It's like at this point we're kind of meant to think he's a mastermind and, he's in control. He's been hidden away here for a decade or more, so...
It's true.
Good points as well.
The other unsatisfying thing I had with Harrison, I think that the show really wants to have it both ways with him, where it says, hey, look, does he have a dark passenger or not? Because you set him up and say, oh, he's definitely got a dark passenger. And then by the end of it, it's just like, no, he doesn't have a dark passenger. In fact, he rejects his father. Like, wait a minute, you already previously established that he set up a kid at school and sliced him in the leg. And he's broken some kid's arms. Like, he's got some problems. You can make a very strong argument. He better find somebody like Dexter or he's going to go hurt a lot of people. But at the end, in order to kind of make it a white versus black type thing, they just basically say, no, he's good now. He judges his own father. And I'm just like, that's a little too easy.
Well, and the good point that they said was basically he's like that. He has his dark passenger or whatever, and it's because of Dexter. It's not because of Trinity and all that. It's because that Dexter abandoned him and really wasn't there for him, and that's what's kind of leading him towards it. And that's why he ultimately rejects him at the end and makes the choice that he does. But there is speculation that they could, because they're realizing they lost such a massive asset for Showtime, that, they might try and spin off a Harrison show or something to that extent.
That's not going to work at all.
Okay. Clyde Phillips said he would do it. He would do it in a heartbeat.
Good for you, Clyde. It's not going to work. Period.
There you go. And that's why I don't think we've heard an announcement from the network, despite all of the speculation and all the media outlets. So there we go. Let's do this episode, a number for this episode first, and then the season as a whole.
All right. So the number for the episode is, for me, is a 5 out of 10. It's dead. Dead as Dexter has been left. It just felt weird. I already kind of explained my metaphor for what it was like for me. I didn't buy it. I didn't feel it. I knew the writer brought it, but it seemed more like kind of a cheap stunt than a real, true resolution to a character's journey.
So I enjoyed this last episode. I thought it was really well written. I had it at an 8 out of 10. And I think it was the proper way to end the character for all of the prior seasons that had come before it. I didn't think there was any kind of other way you'd get around it with Dexter, to have him exposed and ultimately killed was probably the right way to do it, and to bring his son in and kind of resolve all those story angles. Everything's resolved and put away, so I like that. But now if we move on to say, well, what about this season as a whole? Where does that really fit into it?
Yeah, for me, the season as a whole, a disappointing finale and not a whole lot of fun leading up to it. I can't really give it a favorable review. It's a 5 out of 10 for me, dead.
See? And you're even giving it more than I gave, because I didn't like those late episodes. I thought they killed everything for me. So despite the great start and, the very good, decent finish, I have it at a 4 out of 10. I think the season as a whole was just kind of clumsily executed, poorly written, especially in those later episodes. They're just kind of like stumbling around until, they get Clyde, someone who actually has talent, and comes back in and kind of writes off a nice kind of send-off finale there for Dexter.
Yeah, I'm glad Dexter came back. I feel like there was juice left in this character. I feel like there was
too. I think you could have done another season if you wanted to, with Dexter and Harrison in a new location.
And I really would have liked for this season if they just basically did what they started doing, which set up everything brand new and not lean so heavily on all the seasons that came before. But as
that would have made it a better season too.
As it got closer and closer to the finale, it leaned so heavily on what came before in all those earlier seasons, to the point that the last episode is just using it as a crutch. All the other seasons that came before.
Totally agree. I think you're right. If they just set up this season as like, okay, we're starting again, and here's our new season. We have introduced all our new characters, the new location. Now we're just going to continue season after season. I think that would have been extremely good and extremely effective. I'm not sure if Michael C. Hall would have come back to do it and start over again.
Why? What's he doing? He got better things to do?
I don't know. He was tired of the character. I don't know. He only came back so he could finish it off. But yeah, I don't think Clyde Phillips would have done it. He only came back as a way to kind of end the character. Showtime certainly would have wanted it, especially after these ratings.
That's
Can
what
you
people
imagine?
wanted.
Can you
People
imagine
wanted.
if they still had it going after all these ratings? Oh,
I'd be feeling pretty good if I was a
they'd
Showtime
be feeling
executive.
damn good. Too bad.
There you go, guys. Those are our thoughts on Dexter New Blood.
Dexter's
Season
done.
that was.
We're through it.
If you've been following along, please leave your thoughts and feedback down below. This was a polarizing episode. Let us know what you thought about it. Check us out on Twitter, like and subscribe, and we will see you all on the next one.